Y'all ready to go? Fire up.
Max said that Storm played the best game he's played since he's been here Saturday night. How would you evaluate his play? And it appears that maybe his trajectory's been pretty sharp the last month or so since that switch was flipped for him.
Yeah, it's been nice to see. I feel like Storm is definitely ascending right now in terms of his production. I think he's got a good grasp of, what he needed to do to improve, and he's really worked on his craft every day at practice. It's showing up, and it's not just in the passing game, right? It's also in the run game. We put a premium on, corners being able to tackle. This day and age, that's what offenses do. They get the ball out to the perimeter, and they end up, ultimately making the corners have to tackle. And I think he's done a good job with that. So I think his game is kind of coming along in a lot of ways. He had a really, really nice pick. He's able to tackle now and crack replace and be able to tackle on the perimeter better than he did earlier in the year. Even at one point he had a nice strip where he went with the ball. He got the ball out. Ultimately, we didn't fall on it, but he's starting to make some things happen. I think his confidence is building, and it's really good to see that. But he's worked at it, so he's getting what he earned. And we talk to him every day about what you do in practice will show up in the game, and he's certainly an example of that.
On the other side, how would you assess how Tony's path has been since the start of fall camp to where you're at?
Yeah, I think Tony is continuing to improve. As everybody on our defense, we all have to play better, and he's in that category for sure of constantly trying to improve his craft as well. But he's done some nice things in coverage the last couple of weeks, and he's coming along. So he's got to be like everybody else on our defense, just keep working every day and trying to improve.
How does the short week change things for you? Today is, I guess, a Tuesday. Is that...
Yeah, I think I've lost track of the days. So today was typically our Tuesday practice. And it doesn't really change. Everything gets moved up, a little bit, which, it's a quick turnaround when you have a game that ends at 9:30 at night and all of a sudden you're practicing again Monday morning. So that's probably a little bit of a challenge. But kids handled it great today. There's nothing that changed in terms of the schedule, although it moved up a day earlier. But we try to keep everything. I think Coach does a really good job of trying to keep everything the same. Even though things change, trying to keep everything as consistent as possible.
Have you watched the last 2 minutes of the NC State game last year? Obviously, you were on the staff, but
I have.
Dramatic.
I have. Yeah, it's always about execution, right? And at those points in the games, one side executes better than the other, and usually when that happens, the team that executes better wins. So. It was a situation where we had a chance to win the game, and we had a chance to get a couple of stops, and we didn't get them. But it all goes back to the execution when everything is on the line. When games are on the line, are we executing at a high level? And that's what we have to continue to, instill in our guys, that when the game is on the line, are you executing at a high level? Are you doing what the defense asks you to do? And if not, the result's not going to be favorable. So we've had our moments where we've executed well at the end of games, and we've had our moments where we haven't. So, but as last year's game is in the past, but we have to continue to, at the end of the game, we've got to execute at a high level if we expect to win.
Gene, I remember you telling us way back when you got here, you're like, yeah, you went and watched all the games. But a moment like that with the NC State thing just collapsing, did you take things and make them teaching points for this group from what you saw, or did you just say, leave it in the past? Did you take, all right, let's look at this from the state game last year and try to make it a teaching point for how you're preparing your guys just in general?
Yes, in general, we were able to take different moments in the last, from last season. It's not an indictment on anybody. We were just taking those moments and using them as teaching moments, so we definitely did that. We do that now. But there's a lot of things to learn. I mean, look across the country at what happened at the end of games. Look with TCU is a great example, right? So I think there's always great teaching moments. So certainly we used that one in the last 9 months. At some point, we used that as a teaching tool. along with other games. And so, there's a lot to learn from in those situations. So they're good teaching moments.
You sort of, you got to follow.
Go for it.
Could you sort of talk us through the process of deciding what packages you put on the field, specifically late? They got a 3rd and 4, I think they got a false start, it goes to 3rd and 9, you swap out. What's that process? Is it a field thing? Is it a down and distance thing? How does that
Yes.
work?
That's a really good question. Especially in 3rd downs, right? Those are critical moments in the game. And in those moments, you have to decide, is there a high probability of pass? Is there a 40% chance of run? What does it look like? So there's a lot of ingredients that go into that, right? What I just said would be the main one. People usually have great tendencies on what they do, right? That's why we break down the percentages. When it comes to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9 or 10, a lot of people have different ideas in those down and distances. So based on what we think probability-wise we'll see, that's when we make the determination whether we're going to wholesale sub, put a lot more speed, more cover guys on the field. And we don't have to do that. There was a lot of times Saturday night when we didn't. And so it's based on percentages. It's based on gut feel. So feel thing, in the moment, what we think we need to do. And you can literally have a penalty that takes you from, using your example, 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 9, and it changes the mindset of what you want to do. So all of those scenarios mesh together, go into determining who you're going to have on the field for that down.
Did the quarterbacks, Max said the challenge facing Georgia Tech is they had 2 quarterbacks. If, I can't pronounce his name, 17, he's going to likely run. The other guy, Gibson's likely going to throw it. Did that factor into in that situation?
It did. There's no doubt about it. And that was a tough situation, right? Those are the calls that you got to make and be right. And earlier in the game we subbed the exact same package in, ran essentially the exact same play. They ran the ball and we were good. They ran the ball in that particular case that you're talking about, and we weren't good. So just kind of depends on how it unfolds, but there's definitely a means to the madness.
What is one thing, if you were to describe why Cedric Gray is so prolific, what is the first thing that you think of why he's so prolific?
Football IQ. He's really smart. He sees the game. Obviously, he's got the physical tools or he wouldn't be out there with these kind of numbers, right? But I think really, really what separates him is football IQ. I mean, he knows, even when the game unfolds and things are new, we get a lot of people using what we call copycat things that aren't necessarily them, but they'll steal them from somebody else and they'll insert them in our game, and we don't ever know when they're coming. He's a really smart player, and he can recognize some things like, that maybe we haven't worked, but he remembers it. He remembers what other people tried to do with it. Just a real savvy, crafty player, but his football IQ definitely separates him. That's without me stating the obvious. He's physically gifted and talented. But he really, you can't be around the ball that much. You can't be around the ball that much and not really have a great football IQ and good feel for the game. And that's, to me, what separates him.
How soon after getting here did you realize that he was maybe on a different level with football IQ?
I think as we got further along into spring practice, it started to become evident because, again, when you're installing everything new, you see who, catches on quickly. You see who maybe needs more reps. And so you had a feel then, but you really don't know until the season unfolds, because when the season unfolds, you see an array of everything, right? You see all kinds of formations, you see all kinds of plays, and you have various defenses that you're seeing them against. That's when it became very apparent early in the season that no matter what the game plan was, no matter what we were seeing, he understands everything. He knows how to adapt and adjust. He can get people lined up correctly. That became very evident probably the first quarter of the season, where it really popped out to me. And I said, you know what, this guy football IQ wise is really, really up there.
Gene, Ben Finley for NC State was running around here during the pandemic season. They threw him in 2020. He was running all over the place in here. Like, how far do you have to go back with that guy in terms of film? Or do you just take Louisville and say, okay, well, look at how he played?
We essentially just took Louisville. And, again, you got to look at the entire picture, right? There's a new center playing. There's some new guys around him. What does it look like in this year with this football team, with these receivers, with these running backs, everything that goes with it. So that's really where we spent the lion's share of our time. Not that we are not going to go back and look at everything, but as of right now, we really focused on the Louisville game.
Do you have to, we asked Mac about it, do you have to take Chambers, MJ Mark, do you have to take everybody that may be available
Yes.
into account?
Yes, you do. And then that's the challenge of it, right? In practice, you got to decide, when he's at quarterback, here's what we're getting. This is what we're going to look at. When this one's at quarterback, this is what we think, right? So it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game because you're not really sure who's going to show up. But you definitely have to prepare for both, and we're doing that.
Get those scout team guys ready too to play quarterback.
Absolutely. Yes.
You got a shell game there too, probably.
Yes. And we did. We did that today. We made sure we got the right guys in the right spots that give us the right looks. And, we'll continue to do that because, again, it's a guessing game. Who knows? I have no idea.
Building off that, how much do you scheme not just for another quarterback, but for receivers? Thayer Thomas is their guy. He's like their
Yeah.
touchdown.
Yes.
How do you scheme specifically for those guys, or is it mostly concentrated on whichever quarterback's going to be out there? How does that work?
Well, it's everything, right? You can't ignore Thayer. I mean, he is a really, really good player. He makes key catches in key moments. Just a really, really good football player. And he's not the only other one, right? They got some other really productive receivers, got some productive tailbacks. So it's an entire, comprehensive plan. Yes, the quarterbacks do matter because just by nature, some quarterbacks, when you play the potential of playing two, when you have the potential of playing two, they usually don't do the same things equally as well. That's why you're playing two. So you have to make sure that you have a plan for that in general, but you can't ignore all the other good players out there, right? So you really have to prepare for where everybody is, when, we always got to know where number 5 is. You always got to know where he's at. So it's a comprehensive plan. It can't just be, oh, here's the quarterback, this is what we're going to get, because they got a lot of other good players in a lot of other spots.
We got time for one more.
Gene, did you get hit over the eye there? Did you take some friendly fire?
No, didn't take any friendly fire. A little trip to the dermatologist. I'm healthy. Don't panic. I'm good.
Mac had the pink eye the other day.
I got the red eye lid. That it?
All
We're
right.
good? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Gene.